Hi everybody, my name's Larry Thomas and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is May 2nd, 1982. And my home group is the Big Book Group of Bellflower, California. And I'm happy to be here, and actually it didn't happen like that at all. I just remember this son of a keep calling me, not telling me who he is and all that, and so when he picked me up at the airport, we got in the truck, and I made the mistake of asking, "How you doing?" And the rat bastard hasn't stopped since telling me. All I heard, and it's just it's a 15-minute ride from here to the airport, right? Felt like forever, right? All I heard all the way over, we're gonna have some butt. We're gonna go to my house and smoke some butt. I'm thinking, what are we talking about butt? I'm from California. I can go all kinds of different places, smoking my butt, you know what I mean? So finally, he told me, that he's a barbecue guy, and he's making some pork butt and some buffalo butt and all kinds of butt, and he's a butt man. So obviously a butt man. And here's the cool thing, though, is that today he invited a handful of us over there. And we got to go to his home, and I'm a butt man. I'm not supposed to eat that kind of stuff because it wasn't too long. I'm coming up on some surgery not too long ago. I had my aorta valve in my heart. They had to open up my chest and take out the aorta valve, and they couldn't find enough pigs for me, so they put in a cow valve, which is really great because I can shit standing up now, and excuse me. But on the way over here, we were passing some, pretty open fields, and I had this tendency to kind of wander over there, And of course, I always got 5 flies on my ass wherever I go. But I'm doing pretty good now, and I tell you, the food that man made was out of this world, And I am so pleased to be with you guys. And we have had some of the finest speakers in AA that you will ever hear. I'm just pleased to, I want to thank, I guess it's Scott or Steve or, Brenda Lee, Sarah Lee, all of the Lees, for having me come out here and stuff, and it's just been great to be with you. If you're new in Alcoholics Anonymous, my sponsor tells me that I'm living proof that a man can stay sober for 37 years and not amount to a damn thing. So I'm here to bring you hope. I don't have a lot of. I'm a plumber. Alcoholics Anonymous took me out of the gutter. They stuck me in the sewer, for God's sakes, And I'm working on some retirement and stuff like that. And I, with all this going on, I had a fabulous call from somebody I sponsor. There's nothing like having new peoples, around you and stuff like that. And yesterday afternoon, I got a call from this kid that I started sponsoring. He's got 7 days. Yeah, his name is Zipper. That's going to be a hell of a 5th step, huh, And Zipper's kind of troubled right now. He doesn't know what to call himself. He doesn't know whether to call himself Dan, Danny, or Daniel. This has got him boxed in, you know. His real name is Mike, you know, but he's going to change everything, you know. But I understand, you know. Here it is. I'm a loser, okay? I'm a hostile loser, you know. I don't have a lot of stuff, bringing stuff into AA, and, you know, I didn't have any kind of normal life to return to, because the only thing that happens to me when I get sober is I return to the life that got me here. I don't have any other life than what I had that got me here. I'm a hostile loser. And when you're a loser like me, all your life, your family and neighbors and friends are bringing strangers up to you to compare you to. You know, why don't you try to be like Bobby, for God's sakes? You know, he's your age, he's doing good. Be like Bobby, you know. And I remember being a freshman in high school, and I got caught, you know, getting drunk, and it was an easy catch, you know. Well, there he is under there, you know, and so me and my dad are in the principal's office, which is always fun, right? And we're sitting there, and my dad sees this picture of this star quarterback, number 7, Coy. Just like that. And the old man gives me the nudge, and he says, for God's sakes, Larry, why don't you try to be like Coy? Look at that kid. He lives down the street from you. He's your age. Look what he's doing. A football player, doing good, clean cut. Be like Coy. I said, all right, Pop, I'll give it a shot. My sophomore year, I got arrested again on campus. I got loaded on some Thunderbird wine and some barbiturates. And I stole the janitor's cart, and I ran it through the library doors, you know. I had to get that book back, you know. And they arrested me, so me and my dad and my probation officer are sitting in the principal's office. And Mr. Sturgeon sees this picture of the star quarterback. Hey, Thomas, why don't you try to be like Coy, for God's sakes? Look at him. He's your age. He's doing good. He's clean cut. Be like Coy. And I says, all right, Mr. Sturgeon, I'll give it a shot, right? My junior year, my big sister starts dating some guy and brings him over to the house. Who is it? Well, it's that rat Coy over there, you know, sitting right there on my couch. My mom comes running over in her new, why don't you try to be like Coy, you son of a, you know. And my senior year, I'm in the Torrance jail getting ready to do 6 months. And a newspaper, Daily Breeze, comes sliding under there, and it says that Coy makes all-pro CIF. And I thought, God, I'd like to be like Coy. You know, this cat's life is just clicking right along, you know. Well, lo and behold, I'm about 5 years sober in old A&A town. And in Los Angeles, I don't know about Nashville, but in Los Angeles, it's been vogued out on every street corner. They've got a guy selling oranges or peanuts or peaches, and he has this sign that says, I'll work for food, right? Like you don't, you know, and maybe you don't. I don't know, pal, you know. And I look like a guy that needs help, you know. People are always giving me pamphlets and booklets telling me that Jesus and Jehovah and all these J guys are coming to town, and I need to go talk to them, you know. And I'm 5 years sober, and I'm sitting in my plumbing truck, and I've got my cardboard rolled up in my truck because at 5 years sober, things are going good in my life, you know. And I'm at the stoplight, and this cat's standing there with the cardboard sign, and he looks, peers. He comes walking over to my truck, sticks his head in my truck and goes, Larry Thomas. And I go, Coy. It's over, you know, it was old number 7 right there on the corner. And I thought, my God, you know, I thought this cat had it made, you know. Then it dawned on me, if there was any justice in AA, that maybe Steve or Bill or, you know, Darren could write this cat a letter saying, why can't you be like Larry? You know what I mean? I mean, but that, you know, that's the way I've been my whole life. You have always had it together. And I've gone through life feeling half alive, dragging this anvil of no hope. And enough sloth that I don't want to do anything about it. Hell yeah. Sloth is my middle name, man. Put me down for the minimum. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know, because they may have to rely on you to do it again. You know. And I come from good people. I come from great people. My mom and dad were the finest, you know. I was born in Detroit, and I come out to California when I was about 5 years old. They had some troubles. They were married young, and some things happened, and they brought us out to California. Then they put me in a foster home and an orphanage for a while. And then something happened to them. They got together, you know, and they got me out of there, and my mom was a sweet lady. My mom was a little Scandinavian lady, you know, and my mom loved speed. My mom loved those diet pills, boy. She loved to eat that speed and run around the house and make Afghans all day long, you know. Couches had Afghans, the chairs had Afghans. My dad's golf clubs had a little poodle head she knit for him, you know. If there was any animals, they had a fresh vest on, you know, and no matter what time you got up, she was up cleaning shit with your toothbrush, you know, just a busy lady, you know. The diet was working. She was down to a stick, you know. And we, you know, we didn't have a lot of money. We were in Gardena, but she had a small little room where she can do all of her knitting. You can hear her all night just going to town, man. We're like the garment district, you know. And, you know, and as some of you new guys know, that when you eat a lot of speed, that you have a lot of hobbies. Am I correct here? You know, every head that's nodding has not one real tooth in it. I could see that from here. You betcha, man. Goddamn right. And she had a lot of hobbies, and you know as well as I do, you know, you like to do them all at once, right? Right? You're painting, you're mowing, you're ironing, you're shaving, you're doing all these things at once, and her favorite hobby was to eat that speed and make these huge jigsaw puzzles, right? Not the 3,000 pieces or the 10,000 pieces, the 1 million pieces, you know, of the Mojave Desert, right, you know? Oh, yeah, this is just, oh, my God, this is wonderful. It's going to be a beige night tonight, honey, you know, and she'd run down to the drugstore and get her prescription filled and get her carton of Raleigh cigarettes. She smoked these Raleigh cigarettes. She loved them because on the back of each pack of cigarettes there was a coupon. And she could save these coupons and buy more yarn. It was a hideous cycle she was caught up in, you know. One that I know you know about, you know, and she'd come home, you know, and put that stinky peroxide on her hair and put her little one and only moo-moo she had for 50 years, you know, and squeeze herself in that little breakfast nook, you know, and eat that speed and start smoking those Raleighs and start putting together this puzzle. And if she got a puzzle piece that didn't fit, she had a big pair of toenail clippers. She'd snip that son of a and wedge it right in there, you know. She was a determined woman, you know. God love her, man. God love her to death, man. Now, what was to happen to me if you're new? What was to happen to me is I'll never want to forget this. I never want to forget what it was like to be 17 years old and be put away for a small period of time. And when you come out and the bus lets you out at the courthouse, you're supposed to go in and do some stuff and then go home. And the bus lets me out and I don't go home. No, I run back into the neighborhood. And that's a Monday, and I come out on a Thursday. I come out on a Thursday rainy morning. And I don't go home. No, I'm standing in a parking lot of a dry cleaner's. And I'm about from here to those lobby doors. And it's raining out, and I got my drunken mud on, my filth and my disgust. As Wino Joe used to call it, the habiliments of despair. And I'm dressed the way I'm living. You can see how I am, with my filth and my blood and everything. And the rain's hitting me hard. And I'm staring at that. She's working at a dry cleaner's. She works as a cashier at a dry cleaner's, and she cleans people's houses on the weekends. And I'm ashamed of her, and I make fun of her. But I'm not too ashamed to show up unannounced with my filth, standing behind this parked car, waiting for that last customer to come out of there so I can walk through that filthy rain and tap on my mom and use her again. And I remember walking through that rain as if it was yesterday, looking at those filthy feet going through that rain and coming in there and opening that glass door, and that bell hits that glass door, and my mom makes that oh so familiar sound. Oh my God, what's happened to you? And she turns around and she grabs her wallet and pulls out $1 and $2, and I run by her and I grab that money and I run off to Wilmington where I'm going to die. Now the thing that brings it home to me tonight in Nashville, you take this same man, new in Alcoholics Anonymous, with my so-called desperation and willing to go to any length, and I need to ask you something. How come, if you were to put the secretary of this meeting that same distance as me and my mom in that parking lot, how come, if my life depends on it, I can't walk that same distance and ask that man for a job in an AA meeting that's going to save my life, but I can walk that distance and use my mom and folks like her time and time and time again? And I'm here to share with you, if you knew, that if my alcoholism doesn't kill me, my selfishness and my self-centeredness will. Make no mistake about that. Which is why it's necessary for a man with 37 years to have a home group and a routine of meetings all week long. And it's not so, and a job in every one of them. And it's not so I can run off to Nashville and tell you the good news. Maybe a little, you know. But I tell you that for one reason and one reason only, if you're new. I will never get so sober that I can't get drunk again. But I can get so drunk that I can't make it back. And I never want to forget what I used to be like. I never want to forget what it's like to know you're in there, and for me to go to all these meetings in this certain South Bay, California area that I was, and I would peer through these glass windows, and I would see you guys in these meetings, and I knew that I was too different to be with you. And if I can come to you folks, find a sponsor and a home group, get that book applied to my life, and find that thing in me that keeps me from serving you, I will have found the key to life. There's a miracle here. Things happen here. Things happen here on such a regular basis that people like me begin to take them for granted. They happen on such a regular basis. And if I can get together with you folks and that sponsor and that book and find that thing that keeps me from serving you, I will have found a key to life. Because the moment that I found out what the key to life was for you, I would begin to take that in every area of my life. We practice these principles in all of our affairs. Anybody can be good for an hour and a half with somebody watching them. But what do you like when you leave here? What do you like at home? What do you like at work? What do you like out there when you're out there doing what you're, without telling anybody you're in AA at all? What kind of guy are you, Larry? And I never want to forget that frightened kid out there. I never want to forget what it was like to know that you were in here and that I was too different to be with you. Why would I be too different? What made me too different? What made me too different is I would sit in meetings and I would hear people say things like this. 30 days ago, I was on the streets of Los Angeles. Now I'm the president of the Bank of America. Thank you very much. I go, my God, I came in with that guy. You know what I mean? All my life, if you're new, all my life, I've been sitting in rooms since the time I was 13, listening to people, well-meaning people, people of the cloth, people of medicine, people of the government, people of the law, all kinds of people, with their books and their photographs and their data and all that stuff and pictures of my fat feet and liver trying to talk me into being an alcoholic. You can't be talked into alcohol. You can't be talked into alcoholism. Thank God. Thank God. Thank God nobody can rob you of that divining moment. That divining moment when you are so full of hopelessness and terror and despair, and the only thing that not drinking ever does to you is drive you back to drinking. Because we're trying to incorporate this lie that we've heard our entire life, And well-meaning people have been telling us. And what exactly is that lie? The lie sounds something like this. Larry, if you would stop drinking, everything would be all right. And I stopped drinking and I am not all right. And the longer I stay sober, the worse I get. And the trouble with me, I don't know about anybody else, and I've heard it said this week, and I love that word desperate. The trouble with me when I get desperate is that it's like any other emotion that I have. In a matter of a month, it wears off. And if I don't replace desperation with inspiration, I'm a dead man. In that book, Alcoholics Anonymous, and if you're new, stay away from that. That's the only way you're going to get them to look at shit. Tell them not to do it. You know what I mean? Don't have any relationship. I'm not. You know. In that book, Alcoholics Anonymous, in the doctor's opinion, he talks about two things with equal force. He talks about a phenomenon of craving and a psychic change. And baby, if you have one, you're going to need the other. Because there's no middle of the road answer. And that's where I died. There has got to be a way for me to keep this in my life if it's the last thing that I do. I couldn't imagine life without it. And the only thing that not drinking ever did to me is it drove me back to drinking time and time and time again. And that's because I'm an alcoholic. I suffer from alcoholism. Not drinking is just the start. You're just on the porch when you come to AA. That's just the fuel to get you into the home. I had no idea. My dad was a happy drunk. My dad was a refinery worker. My dad was a World War II vet. My dad was a happy, just a happy singing the blues, Nat King Cole, Bobby Darin drunk, man. He loved to get drunk and sneak into his own home. It was an amazing thing, man, you know. Standing on that gas meter, pounding on that window, hoping that it's his own home. Getting ready to make that magic dive over the sink or the toilet, you know. He was a window climbing alkie is what he was. Which I believe is a lost art in Alcoholics Anonymous. That old boy standing on that, pounding on that window all night, man. And boy, he snuck in there one night, you know, and that old refinery boot came down on my chest, you know, and I grabbed that boot and I said, Jesus, Pop. I says, you know, why don't you have Mom make you a set of keys, you know? I mean, shit, she's up anyway, you know. I mean, yeah. I can hear the Hoover going now, Dad, you know. Just go over there and talk to her, you know. And my dad always, God, I'll never forget this, man. He would say those things, you don't know how good you got it, kid. You don't know how good you got it. He read my mail like that, man. You don't know how good you got it. Back when I was your age, we really had it tough, and he did. He was a World War II vet. He grew up in the Depression. His father died when he was 13, choked on his tongue. His mother hung herself in a Detroit jail. She was a drunken whore, and he had a dream. And it was to marry my mom. He was to marry my sweet little mom and live a life so well that they would move to California. And they would both work their rears off, 1, 2 jobs, for one reason and one reason only, so that their children would never have to be in a depression like they were. And here I sit with my entitlement. Just because I'm here, I deserve all the goodies. A defect that would follow me into these rooms. Just because I show up, I need it all. I get it all. I don't have to lift a finger. And me and my dad were at war from the time that, I don't know, the first 8 years were okay. But there was things I was hearing in that house. There were things that were going on in this house that I didn't understand. I couldn't trust these people. And that bothered me to no end because I loved them. But I couldn't trust them. There was something so confusing about somebody telling you to do something and then they don't do it. It really confused me. Thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous, where we lead by example. Thank God for sponsorship and friends like I have in this room, where not only do they tell you what they're doing, you can sit next to them in a meeting week after week and watch them do these things. Alcoholics Anonymous is a way of life. And that's what I want to invite you to if you're new. I know somebody hasn't given you an invitation for a long, long time. And I'd like to invite you, how would you like a brand new way of life? How would you like sobriety and a brand new way of life? Or is the life you live in just tickling the snot right out of you? Alcoholics Anonymous will offer you a brand new way of life. And man, that sounded good to me. But I'm running away from home and I'm sneaking out of the house because I can't stand to be alone in that house. I feel like an unwanted guest. I'm hearing things I don't want to hear. Things are being done that I don't want them done, and I don't know what to do. I'm 11 years old, and 4 of us go across the street, and we start passing around a bottle of Four Rose whiskey. And for the first time in my life, this little punk kid who felt half alive started filling up. I no longer felt restless and irritable and discontented. I no longer felt like I didn't belong and I had no hope. I no longer had those fears and those nightmares that I had when I was little. It all went away with a couple shots of Four Rose whiskey. I never laughed so hard in my entire life as I did that day. I never threw up so much as I did that day, you know. I remember that evening I kissed my first Latin woman. It was my aunt. She was 46-year-old, my Auntie Della, man. I just went after her, you know. Because I lived most of my life in the barrios over there in Los Angeles with my Auntie Della, you know. I come to Alcoholics all my life, I thought I was a Mexican. I took an inventory and found out I'm just a white guy with no hope, you know what I mean? And my little Auntie Della, I loved her to death, man. And I remember, I didn't lose my paper out and come to AA the next day like some kids, you know. But I did like most of us did. I marked that spot. I knew I found the thing to even out the playing field. And whenever I would feel restless, irritable, or discontented, or would have to face some form of responsibility, or just plain bored, I could take a shot of some of that Four Rose whiskey. And my dad had it all over the house. My dad had it all over the house, and it was easy to find. And by the time I got into high school, freshman in high school, kids are going to their locker rooms and getting out their notebooks and their books and stuff. And I'm taking out a little half pint of Southern Comfort or some little Night Train Lane or something like that, or a couple barbiturates, you know. And, freshman in high school, I started dating this little Mexican girl, and she had some brothers. And they like cars, and I love cars. To this day, I love cars. A lot of you guys have these trucks with these big tires that you can drive over each other's houses with and shit, you know. I understand that, but I did not have a truck. I had a '64 Chevy Impala, dropped right down to the ground. Had my hair slicked back, my white T-shirt with my black Frisco pants all the way up here, and had a little girlfriend named Loopy. Her girlfriends would curl her hair with soup cans, and the noodles were stuck in there, and I'd have my hair slicked back. We'd drink that Thunderbird and bounce around all night, in our lowered car and wonder what the hell you're looking at, Drinking that wine, listening to the Four Tops and the Temptations and the OJs and Marvin Gaye and Junior Walker. God, I loved it, man. I was in that little plumbing truck not too long ago, and the Four Tops came on. I just started sinking in my damn truck. I loved it, man. I found my spot. I found my little group of folks, and I knew that me and Pooch and Loopy were going to bounce off forever in the sunset, man, And she was telling her girlfriends that, men who are well endowed have big feet, so I went out and bought me a pair of 15-inch shoes, and started bouncing around with my big hair and my big feet, and God, I felt good, Darren tripped over my foot tonight, and I felt proud. Hey! I don't have any socks on. You want me to take off my shoe, big guy? And I loved it, man. And I became somebody, man. No longer was I that little loser at the house. No longer was I scared, that little kid in my own head. I became Lawrence of Torrance, Nobody else knew that, but I knew that, and that's all it was needed. And we'd bounce around these guys forever, man. I remember one day we were bouncing around, and Loopy, it was, Thursday or something, Loopy says, let's go to the Jack in the Box. And, we were drinking that 151 rum. Yeah. Oh, that is it. I love that, man. We were drinking the 151 rum, And I don't know if they out here, do they have Jack in the Box? Yeah, they do. I do. Yeah, another fine dining. And she says, what else? What else? She says, we're drinking that 151 rum, you know, and it's about 5 in the afternoon. She goes, what else? She says, pull up into the Jack in the Box. Let's talk to the puppet, you know. We were a lonely couple, okay, you know. And so I pull up to the old Jack in the Box, and I've been drinking that stuff all day, and I can see about 15 puppets, you know, and you know, can I have your order, please, you know, and I want to talk to them, you know. I want him to be my designated driver, I think, you know, and I rolled in there and I ran over the puppet. His head's hanging down over the side. The kid's still yelling at me, can I have your order, please, you know, and Jesus, the cops come, they arrest me, they throw me on the hood of the car, shatter my hair all over the place, you know, take me into jail, and I don't drive till I'm 30. Well, big deal. Big deal. There's nothing like riding shotgun. Let Rudy drive. What the hell, man? There's nothing like riding shotgun, drinking that little hot wine, looking at yourself in that mirror, making that discovery that every alkie makes when he's drunk and looking in the mirror, and that is, what a good-looking man you are. Jesus Christ, look at you, Larry, you know. You ought to be an underwear model, you know. You don't wear any, but what the hell, you know. Your hair's all straight up and flat because you've been sleeping on the window. You got 30 pounds of tamale puke on your chest, and you feel like dancing, you know what I mean? Oh, yeah, man. And I ran into a guy like that not too long ago. I was up there at one of our shopping malls, and I'm walking through this mall, and this kid comes walking by me, and you can tell he was one bad guy. He had his mom's earrings on, you know. And this guy was really bad because he had his buddy not pierce his earlobes, he drilled them out. All right? The cat's got he drilled out his earlobes. You could put a clock in there, you know, an AA triangle, whatever you want, you know. And he's got all these ball bearings, you know, on him. Now, you know, when they've got these big rings, these holes in there, and they come to AA, and you start sponsoring them, and you tell him to do something, and he goes, I ain't doing that crap, and he goes to walk away, well, you can hook him. Bring him right back in here, you know. And he walked by me, and he got all these ball bearings. He got one in here, one up here, one in his nose. He got, you know, one in his tongue. He's got a chain wrapped around his neck, and that's hooked to his wallet because he doesn't want to lose those condoms, you know. And he walks by me, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and he says, well, what the heck are you looking at? And I said, man, I don't have a clue what I'm looking at, you know. I wanted to squirt him with some WD-40 to make sure he keeps moving on, you know. Well, we started talking, and then we started laughing. And then we started talking, and we're laughing, and now I sponsor him, you know. His name is Ron. He lived down in Chula Vista, and he's now living over in Hawaii. He works for the government. He's in the Navy. Just a miracle of what happens when you give your life and your will over to the care of Alcoholics Anonymous. Amazing thing that is. And in 1969, all these guys are you know, going to Vietnam, and some are turning hippie and going to San Francisco. And I thought, well, what am I going to do with my life? So I thought, well, maybe I'll grab my buddy and drive out to Detroit and find my roots. So I grabbed my buddy, bounced off to Detroit, and we wound up in Phoenix. Over on North Central and Roosevelt at the Apache Hotel. The Apache is 4 or 5 floors high. Great place. Everybody has a bathroom. It's down the hall. Everybody has TV, and it's in the lobby. It's $35 a week, and I don't have the money to make this rent, and I don't know what to do. I'm afraid to leave my room during the day, and I'm afraid to be by myself at night. I can't stand to be by myself in the dark. I can't sleep. I don't know what to do, but I'm looking out that window, and I find my little place. I find the wagon wheel bar. And it's a bar with no curtains. It's just no windows, just a dirty curtain blown through the window, right? And I go in there and I meet a guy named Ernie. Ernie was from Tennessee. Ernie was from Frog Jump, Tennessee. He says, I know what we're going to do. He says, come back here. I hope I have the accent right. I'm not quite sure. I don't know what we're going to do, but he said, come back here in the morning and I'll hook you up and I'll get you a job. And sure enough, I showed up that morning and he introduced me to this plumber. I'd never plumbed anything in my life, man, you know. And he put me in his truck and he took me out to the desert and stuck me underneath the house. And he gave me a transistor radio. And he says, now you stay under here. He says, all I want you to do is hang copper, son, all day long. Just hang copper. That's all I want you to do. And I'll come back in 9 hours and come and get you. And he took off. Now, I love being in your home. Anywhere. Your attic, underneath your house, I don't care. I love your house and the things in it, you know. And I'm underneath this house. I got a pint of bourbon, PM bourbon. And man, I look around and God, I'm on top of the world. I got it made under here, man. I start crawling around under there and I see this stray cat way in the back and I go, God, this is great, man. This is great. I got a transistor, I got a pint, I got a pet, you know. I mean, you know, things are clicking along in Larry's life, pal, you know. And I start drinking that hot bourbon. 9 hours later, they're dragging me out from underneath the house. Apparently, I got drunk and I busted up through the lady's floor, robbed her of all of her jewelry and some of her money. They're dragging me out. This little cat comes running out with a bunch of necklaces on, you know. Put me in jail for 2 months. I come out of there, go back to the wagon wheel, and Ernie says, I know what we're going to do. I know what we're going to do. He says, not too far from here is a horse track. He says, we're going to get you down to 95 pounds. You're going to be a jockey. And I said, great, man. I'm going to start working out, man. This is great. You know, we ain't got time to work out. And he gave me a little pouch, and he says, I want you to take this. And it was speed. I don't do speed. I ain't going to be no Afghan maker, for God's sakes, you know. I don't do that stuff. He said, no, you don't understand. All I do is I want you to take it for 2 months. We'll get you down to 95 pounds. We'll take you to the track, and we'll get our colors, and we'll be on our way. He says, so I'll see you in 2 months. And he takes off, and he leaves me in this little room with this stuff that I've never taken, right? 2 weeks later, he comes back, opens up the door, and he looks at me and goes, my God, you couldn't have possibly taken that, you know. And, you know, I've been chasing a fly around my room for 2 weeks, you know what I mean? And looking out my window every 10 seconds going, what's that? What's that? What's that? What's that, you know? Or I'm hiding underneath the bed because I'm, you know, these black and white flashes are coming up and scaring me half to death. And it was the damn sun coming up and down, you know. Look out, here comes again. It's got a face on it, you know. He knocked on that door. I opened it. Oh, my God, you couldn't have possibly done. Well, I did, Ernie. You can put a saddle on me and ride my ass around here, you know. So I went back down to the old wagon wheel and, you know, started working for this other plumber, you know. And, I guess I worked for this cat for about, 2.5 hours, you know. And I found out that he was younger than me. And I ain't working for no kid. Shit, I got my pride, you know what I mean? And I did what any honorable man would do. I faked a knee injury, and they took me to the hospital. And the doctor wrote me a prescription for Percodan. And then he left me a cardboard box full of blank prescription pads he wanted me to have. Grab that old box, man. You know, I'm running down North Central like I got a bucket of gold, man. I ducked into the old wagon wheel. Ernie looks at things. He goes, man, this is great. This is great, you know. And he makes a phone call to some cat down in Yuma, Arizona, and we start selling and writing prescriptions. Drinking that whiskey and writing prescriptions for Seconal and Nembutal and Tuinal. You name it all. We wrote it all, man. It was great, you know. Damn near took it all, too, you know. In about 9 months, they caught up with me, and when you're loaded on whiskey and barbiturates, there's no freeway chase, you know what I mean? Well, there he goes down 17th Street. He'll get the hell at. None of that was happening, you know. I was going 9 miles an hour. And the cop was on foot. He was just... I'm looking at this guy, and I go, can this man run or what, man, you know? Jesus Christ, you know, and they threw me out of that car. They rolled me up. They sent me to southern Arizona for about a year. I get out of there. They put me on the Greyhound bus and send me back to Los Angeles. I hook up with the probation department, and they put me on antabuse. And for the first time in my life since I'm 13, I don't have a thing in my system. They give me a little voucher for a hotel, the Roytan or the Greyhound Hotel in downtown Torrance. And after 2 months, I'm on this antabuse, and I'm not drinking or anything like that. I get a voucher to go apply for a job at a refinery to be a janitor at midnight, part-time. And I'm taking the bus, so there's none of this, I'll be right there, sir. It's 2 hours on the bus, 2 hours early or late, and I get there 2 hours early, and I'm in this little city of El Segundo. It's like Mayberry, and I'm walking around this little city, scared to death about this interview, and I go hide out in a Little League field. I got about 2 hours to wait, and I'm in this Little League field. And I started having these memories about me and my dad playing baseball catch in the driveway and stuff like that. And I go into this Little League, and I'm in this place, and I start laughing hysterically. Then I start crying like a baby. Laughing, this goes on for several hours. Finally, I get another phase of paranoia that I'm used to having when I stop drinking and all that. But this time it locks in these hallucinations that used to leave. And it locks them in a way that I never want to forget. They say I became somewhat catatonic, and somebody called a paramedic, and they come and get me, and they take me to the Harbor General Hospital in Torrance, California. I'm on a little gurney with an arm and a leg. Doctor comes up to me with a little piece of paper, and he says, "Son, it seems like the way you've been living for the past couple years, I think we need to send you to a state hospital out by Oxnard and be observed for 30 or 60 days. And they put me in a little van, chained down to this little van all by myself, and send me on a 3.5-hour drive. And they put me in a state hospital where I'm supposed to be observed for 30 or 60 days. And a year later, they let me out. Totally observed. And they were sure that it was my past. They were sure some of the things that had happened to me that I had to deal, and it was my past. And there were things that they administered and things that they did to try to do that. And by the time I got out of there a year later, I had my medication. And what happened to me is after about 2 months, I ran out of this Thorazine. And I wound up on Olvero Street in downtown Los Angeles across the Chevron station in a pile of tires. And I wasn't just kicking it. I'd been living on there for a long time because that's what I do. When you're in a state of alcoholic torture, and you have this obsession, this merciless obsession, that does not care how desperate you want to stay sober. And there I was over there on this pile of tires, and I was arrested. And they picked me up for a public nuisance and forgery charges out of state. And they sent me up to Wayside County Ranch, where I'm going to be sentenced to 2.5, 3 years in the state penitentiary. And after about 3 months, they put about 40 of us in a black and white van. And they send me down to South Bay Courthouse, where I'm going to be tried and convicted and sentenced to 2.5 years. And they put me in this little holding tank about the size of this room here. And there was about 40 of us, and one by one the judge starts calling these folks out. And these guys are gone. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm the only one left. I've got a Vaughn's bag and no hope, and I'm sitting on a concrete floor. And I'm wondering where I'm going to next. Wonder where we're going now. And at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, a Scottish man with a patch opened up a jail door. And he slid that door open, and he says, "Aye, lad." He says, "My name is Alex. Are you Larry Thomas?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I am." He said, "Come with me, son. We're going to AA." And I thought, oh my God, what's AA? I've heard of OR and PO, but what's AA and what's the Scottish pirate doing here? I've been hallucinating so much I didn't know if he was real. Well, let me tell you this. That man was perfectly real. He is what I see tonight. He's what I see when I'm at home. And he is what I hope you see if you're new. He's what my book calls a trusted servant. Now, what would make that man a trusted servant in my heart and soul is simply this. He had no business being there. He wasn't on a panel. He wasn't part of H&I. He was a refinery worker who just lost the worst, he just got the worst news of his life. And that news was that he was losing his wife to a terminal illness and she was going quick. Now he knew she was in good hands, but he knew he wasn't. But somewhere in his home group. Somewhere in his book study in Nashville, Tennessee. Somewhere in his book study in Manhattan Beach. Somewhere in his 12 and 12 in the big book group of Bellflower, California. That man was to sit with you people and that book and grasp and develop a manner of living that ingrained in him this. That practical experience tells us that nothing will ensure immunity from drinking but intensive work with other alcoholics. This works. This works when other He didn't think of milk and whiskey. It had been removed. He didn't think of milk and whiskey. And it shot me back to Bill laying on that bed in the town's hospital. And his little high school buddy comes in there. And Ebby starts reading him these proposals. Bill didn't just lay there and have the kaboomy. He took him through these proposals. And Bill laid there and had this profounding flash laying in that bed. The wind blowing, the curtains blowing, Johnny Cash playing guitar, I don't know, but all this stuff was happening to him. And for years I used to think that was supposed to happen to me. And little did I know that if you keep reading that 2 paragraphs down, Bill's laying in that same bed not more than 5 minutes after that flash. And the thought came to him, maybe I should work with other alcoholics. On that day, my singleness of purpose was founded. He didn't say, I think I should work with everybody in the world. On that day, my singleness of purpose was given to me, and the thought came to him that maybe he should work with other alcoholics. Now, how many of you new guys have had that thought here in the past couple days? How many of us had that thought? 10 minutes, and I'm thinking maybe, just maybe, that's what he's hoping will happen to me as a result of these steps. That maybe as a result of these steps, my spirit will be awakened, that I will be inspired just like Bill was to carry this message. Maybe, just maybe, desperation can be replaced by inspiration, and inspiration into perpetuation. Maybe that's the triangle I should be looking at. Maybe there's more to do here. And something happened to me as a result of these steps. But I'm laying in that dang thing, and Alex takes me to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm in his little car, and I'm ready for a long ride up north and maybe some lunch, right? He takes me for a 15-minute car ride to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Rolls up to this dingy, stinky, rotten, perverted Torrance, Lameda, Alano club. And I thought, my God, it's a little AA clubhouse, And he starts introducing me to all these goofy people. Indian Genie, Captain Bob, Tennessee Bill, Singing Sam, Serenity Sam, Bicycle Ray, Santa Claus Ray, Dancing Pete, Whistling Butt. All these people, I thought, my God, I just left a group of people like this, Little Moose, she was about 180 years old. She comes running across the parking lot. She goes, hi, honey. She says, my name is Moose, and I'm expecting a miracle. I said, I bet you are. I said, it ain't me, honey. You know what I mean? And then this big transvestite, he starts circling me like a helicopter in Los Angeles, and he starts circling me, and, about his third time around, he comes walking up to me in his new moo-moo, and he says, hi. He says, I can't wait to take you to a candlelight meeting. I says, I don't think so, big guy, you know. Not till I get my year, you know. And I told Alex, I says, my God, does that man have big feet, you know? And that was in 1975. And from 1975 to 1982, I came in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that was the biggest lie that I'd been telling myself my entire life, was that I was going in and out of AA. I hadn't touched it. I did what I've been doing my entire life. I did what I've been doing since I was 13. Sitting in rooms from the state or the county or the city or the federal, sitting in rooms, sitting in that seat, waiting for you to do something for me. I've had my hand out my entire life. What are you going to do for me? What's in it for me? And what I was waiting to be done to me, God was waiting to do through me. There's a miracle here. Things happen here. Things happen here that are just unbelievable once we put ourselves in that avenue of being useful. And what I did all those years is I would sit in these things and I would do what I would always do. Sit and not drink and try to get my life together. Because I was sure, because to the untrained eye, that's exactly what it looks like happens here. To the untrained eye, it looks like people stop drinking, they get a little job, they get a little hotel, they get a little car, they get a dog, and to the untrained eye, it looks like the treatment for alcoholism is normal living. Nothing could be further from the truth. We got people sitting in this room right now who couldn't put another car in their driveway, and they are 5, 10, 7, 18, and they are restless, irritable, discontent, and they don't know what to do because they're sitting in the answer looking for the answer. They've got their material life satisfied, and they are sure that everything else should be sweet. My God don't care about how much money I have in my wallet. Now, there's nothing wrong with having these things. But when they get in the way or become my primary purpose, and I'm not doing Alcoholics Anonymous and carrying this message because of an inspiration, I become inspired to do something else, and that's leave. That's maybe hang myself in a bathroom. I become inspired to do some god-awful things if I'm not working this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous. The material world, it will not cure your alcoholism. What will do something to your alcohol and have that merciless obsession removed will be me and you in that book. And carrying that message, that beautiful chapter, working with others. What is the most powerful word? Is it working? Is it others? And in my heart, it's with. It's with. Because that's what you did to me. You didn't talk down to me. You didn't hammer me. You talked with me. You talked with me like Bill and Bob did at the Cyberlink guest house. Bob didn't want to talk to Bill. He says, I'll give that cat 15 minutes. Make him get out of here. I got shit to do. You know what I mean? And they went into the Cyberlink guest house for what? 4 or 5 hours? And they came out of there and Bob said the magic word. Darn it, he said the magic word. That man understands me. That man understands me. You folks understand me. If you're new in Alcoholics Anonymous and you feel different, welcome to AA. Welcome to AA. And I will tell you what that Scottish man told me, because I was sitting in his car on the way to that filthy club, and he said, son, I know you've had a tough life and you feel different. He says, I can't wait for you to meet these people. I can't wait for you to meet these people. And he says, you don't have to worry about feeling different, lad. He says, because in Alcoholics Anonymous, the more different you feel, the more qualified you are. He says, nobody comes here happy and well-adjusted. And if you're new and you come to Alcoholics Anonymous to get something, you're going to be discouraged. There's nothing to get here. There's nothing to get here if you're new. Look around you, for God's sakes. You know? They're taking people to the Waffle House, you know? There's nothing to get in AA if you're new. The only thing you're going to get if you're new is be prepared to be divinely inconvenienced for the rest of your damn life, man. This is the longest thing I've ever done against my will my entire life, you know, which is why it works so well. It has nothing to do with convenience. It has nothing to do with being in the mood. It has to do with me and you doing what we did before we got here. We died living that life and we gave everything to it. We gave everything to it so much that when we wanted to stop, we couldn't. The alcoholic torture, where his body and his mind is beat to death. And the only thing that ever comes to your head is, get in the car, we're going. We're going. And coming around these meetings from 75 to 82, and every time I called Alcoholics Anonymous, you folks would come and get me. And you were always clean and you were sharp. Which is why I'm wearing a tie right now. It's not because anything special about me. Is that there was something special within me. And you put that there. Every institution that I was ever in, some of the biggest fights were always over respect. What is the first principle you guys taught to me? Was respect. Respect for this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous, Larry. Respect this meeting that you're sitting here. Respect that guy sitting next to you. Respect these folks coming in here. See, to some people, this is the only house on the block. To some people, this is heaven. This isn't a punishment. I had no idea. And every time I would call you, you would come and get me. And I would sit in these rooms, and I would tell these newcomers that don't bother with this thing. AA don't work. Don't bother. Don't bother. AA don't work. It ain't working for me. It ain't going to work for you. Don't bother. AA don't work. AA don't work. AA don't work for me, I used to tell them. And after 37 years, I've stumbled across something. AA don't work for me now. It don't work for Bill. Doesn't work for Steve. Doesn't work for Darren. We work for it. And you better put your head around that. There's some stuff to be done here. This sobriety isn't yours. This isn't yours to little tuck away and hoard, and when you feel like drinking, run down to the old club. He's hoping I'm going to do something with it. He's hoping that there's another plumber out there. He's hoping that there's some other cat that who can identify with me. And maybe, just maybe, he can ask me, how did you do that? How did you do that? I felt just like you did. Could you please show me how you did that? I had no idea that. On May 2nd, 1982, I'm down at the Beacon Light Mission in Wilmington. We get kicked out of this mission. There's only 10 of us. And you get kicked out in the morning at 5. And in order to get your bed that night, you got to sing for your beans and be saved. And I got kicked out that morning, and I'm walking the streets one more time of Wilmington, and I got everything I own on my back. It ain't no big deal, but I did something I hadn't done for a while. I went across this Woolworth store, and I did a reflection of me, and I haven't seen me in years. I don't look at me in mirrors. I don't look at me. I don't look at reflection. And I went about this window, and I seen myself, oh my God, whatever happened to my dreams? And it dawned on me, I don't ever have dreams. I've had thoughts about becoming a carpenter or something like that, but in 15 seconds they're squashed out with, who do you think you are? You'd never make it, Larry. Who you kidding? You'll never cut it out there, Larry. You don't got what it takes. Who you kidding? I panhandled some money that day. And I called a guy who'd been picking me up for years, this bald-headed carpenter named Don Adamson. I called up Don. See, because I kicked him out of that room a couple weeks ago. He came up to that hotel, and I kicked him out. I told him, Don't bother me. I don't want what you have. I don't want what you got. If I ever want it, I'll come down there and let me live my life and, let me do what I want to do. The cry of this alcoholic. And I panhandled some money, and who did I call? I called this Alano Club, and who do I get? I get Don. Don? Hey, this is Larry. I'm down here at the Beacon Lake Mission. I'm ready to come back. Will you come and get me? And he told me the most profound thing I've ever heard in my life. He said, no. He says, you know where we are. Why don't you get your rusty rear down here yourself? I'm tired of chasing after you. And he hung up. And I thought, my God, whatever happened to that AA love? I just heard it. And for the first time in my life, it was up to me to come to you. It was no longer necessary for me to inconvenience the good people of AA. And I walked over that mission, I stuffed all my stuff in my little shopping bag, and I left that mission because I was going to walk that 8-10 miles down to that club, and I went around the back of that mission and I bawled like a baby. Because I started to concede to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic. I knew that I was like a tail on a kite, that I was just a matter of the wind hitting me and I was off. See, I don't have alcoholism. I don't have it. It has me. It has me. And the beautiful thing about Alcoholics Anonymous is that it loosens up that grip. I am in the grip of a progressive illness. It has me. I don't have it. And what it does is it loosens me up just enough to apply this book to my life and to ask these new guys if they need a ride. Just enough to be useful to you. And I conceded to my innermost self, and thank God you didn't rob me of the most divining moment, because it was at that moment that I was rubbing shoulders for the first in my life with a power greater than myself. When you are humbled at that level, and you become so flexible to do anything, you are in a divining place. And what Alcoholics Anonymous and you folks try to do is to keep me that flexible, to keep me that useful, to keep me that willing to do whatever it takes, whatever Alcoholics Anonymous needs. And I conceded to my innermost self, and I took the longest walk of my life with my poopy pants and no hope, and walked up to this club and asked where Don was, and I asked that man something I never asked a man. I said, Don, I don't know what to do with my life. Would you be my sponsor? And for the first time in my life, boy, he lit up like a chandelier for 5 seconds, Then he lit into me for 20 minutes, man. Yeah, and then he gave me the wood, man. He gave me the wood. He told me the alcoholic's little doctrine, man. He says, here's the deal, Cat. You make the effort, I'll make the effort. You don't make the effort, don't bother me, Larry. I've got guys who want this thing. And I fell in love with him. I fell in love with my sponsor. I fell in love with him, and for days and weeks I would walk that. And my job was to walk down to that meeting hall and look for work. And he would drive me back in the evening. And I'll remember this there as long as I live. I'm about 4 weeks sober, and I'm coming out of this meeting, and he's driving me back to the mission, and he sees the look. He says, what's wrong, kid? What's wrong? I says, it's these people in there. Because he would take me to these meetings where everybody was doing well, which was any meeting around, you know what I mean? And I said, Don, I'm surrounded by these successful people. I'll never fit in here. I don't belong here. He says, let me tell you something, son. I know why you have the long face. He says, you're surrounded by people who are successful. He says, I want you all to remember this, Larry. You don't come to Alcoholics Anonymous to become successful. You come here to be useful. Don't you ever forget that. That is your primary purpose, to be useful to this thing that saved your life. And I loved him. I loved him. He says, you're coming home with me tonight. And I thought, all right. And after the meeting, he took me to his place, and I'm smelling waffles already, And he pulls up to this house, and he sticks me in a camper. It's not even on a truck. It's on blocks. It's an abandoned camper, He has this abandoned camper, and he says, get in there. And I get into that thing, And he slams the door. And I says, my God. And he comes back and he opens that door and he says, oh, while you're in here, hotshot, you better find a God. And he slammed that little door again. I said, what's wrong with this cowboy, you know? My God, I'm in a camper. Where am I going to find a God, you know? In a glove box or something like that, you know? About 3:30 in the morning, I'm looking out the window watching the trees breathe. And it dawned on me, I'm going to let this guy do anything he wants. I don't care what he has me to do. I'm going to let him have me. I'll give him a year. I'll give him a year, right? I got a bunch of stuff to do. I'm going to give this guy a year. You better make it quick, pal. My life is clicking. And I remember making that surrender. Or I'm going to let this man do anything he wants, because nobody's going to ever run me out of AA, not even me. I am never leaving this place. And I began on this mission to find out everything I could about Alcoholics Anonymous. I'd never done anything 100% in my life. And I wanted to do it so good, because I don't want to go back out there. And I know I will. And I started following this guy around. And we started making amends to my mom and father. And we've heard that all weekend long. And what a beautiful place that is to be when you're making amends to these folks that you've... I introduced my mom and dad to a level of living they never knew existed. And began to rub their face in it. Use them and abuse them and steal from them. Move my mom around. And I was so pleased to start taking care of my mom when she was passing, long before she was passing. She passed a year ago in November. The little puzzle maker passed away. And she was in this little assisted living. I'll never forget this. And it was about 4 floors high. And all the little ladies in there had balconies and flowers. And I came over there one morning and I noticed that my mom had plastic flowers. All the other ladies had real flowers. And I thought, Larry, you bum. Why don't you get your mom some real flowers, man? And I couldn't wait to tell my mom. I brought her groceries and her diapers, and I said, Mom, I'm going to get you some real flowers. No, honey, I don't want any. Yeah, I know, but I'm going to buy them for you. These are real flowers. No more plastic ones, Mom. You'll be just like the other ladies. No, honey, I don't want any real flowers. Mom, you don't get it. I'm going to plant them. I'm going to water them. I'm going to cut them. I'm going to pot them. I'm going to, do whatever you want me to do with them, man. I'm going to have you some real, and I'll take care of them. Honey, I don't want any real flowers. Look at Mom. She says, Larry, she says, for God's sakes, honey, I don't want any real flowers. She says, I love to sit in my chair and watch the hummingbirds suffer. You got it, Mom, Well, she stayed in that assisted living, and she started losing her memory. And I would give her pictures of people in the family and stuff like that. And I would visit her and I'd take care of her. What a window to be in. What a window to be in. To give back to this little lady that done so much for me. Every time I would visit her at this little place, and she was afraid to leave her room. She had a buddy, and her friend was Catherine. And Catherine looked like Dionne Warwick. She was about 95 years old, and every time I'd go over there and give my mom her goodies and kiss her and start washing her and stuff, Catherine was always there. And this morning I brought over my box of diapers and stuff and went over and kissed Mom on the cheek. And Catherine is watching me. And I'm putting away groceries. And Catherine looks at me and she goes, Larry. I says, what is it, Catherine? She says, I want you to know that I'm available. I thought, my God, I still got it. I said, what's that, Catherine? She says, honey, I want you to know that I'm available. I said, what is it that you have in mind? She says, I'm available for you to do to me what you do to your mama. So I started going over there. And I started seeing Catherine. And then little Betty would come over. And then, little Margaret. And before you know it, I felt like Gulliver's Travels when I was over there. What a window to be in. And when Mommy passed, I was with her. I was with her. I was with her, and that very, very morning I remember writing her a poem. And I hold it to my heart every day. And I got to kiss her. What a great place this is. Same with my daddy. I watched my daddy pass too. Me and Rosie took care of my dad. Every Thursday we'd have chili, me and my dad. It was long, quiet lunches. And me and my dad started talking to him. My sponsor would tell me, talk to him like you would me, Larry. Don't talk to him about AA. Talk to him about things that he's interested. There's nothing worse than talking to somebody who's not in AA about AA, And I would talk to my pop about things that I dreamt about talking to him when I was on a bar. I would talk to him about a family. I would talk to him about a host of friends. I would talk to him about a lovely wife and a daughter. And I loved that moment with my dad. And when my daddy passed, every Thursday, like I said, we'd have that chili. And when my daddy passed, I did the first thing. I went over and I kissed my dad, and I closed his eyes and told my daddy that I loved him. Where would I get that? How could you dare kiss a man? I got that with you. Several times a year, a man will give me a cake. Kiss me right there. Say, I love you, son. I love you. You're like a son to me, Larry. And there's nothing you can do to make me love you anymore. And there's nothing you can do to make me hate you. I'll always love you. But you go out there and never stop carrying this message, Larry. You taught me that. And the day that my daddy died, I called up my sponsor and I told him what happened. He says, I understand, son. He says, take care of your business and get down to your Thursday night meeting. And I said, all right. And all the way down there, I thought, okay, home group, do your stuff. You just tore my heart out. Let me see you put Humpty back together again. Now, I'm not going to tell a soul about what happened. My sponsor, Johnny, knows, and that's it. Let me see you put me together. And I walked down to that dang club, and I dared you. And one by one, every jackass that I sponsor was coming up to me and telling me about their flat tire, about how their dog peed on their rug. And one by one, you started filling this hole in my heart with my primary purpose. Daddy was in good hands, and now I was too. Now I want you to tell you, here's the thing I love about sponsorship. The next week is Thursday. It's chili day. It's 12 and 12 day. It's 4:30 in the afternoon. I should be in Torrance having chili, and my phone rings. Hello? What are you doing, jackass? It's my sponsor. I says, well, I'm just milling around here getting ready to go to our meeting later on. He says, I know. Why don't you come and get me and let's go have some chili, son? Me and my Papa Johnny have been having chili every day. We have chili once a week. You taught me about sponsorship. You taught me about working with alcoholics. Now the most precious thing... No, I got to cut this short. I want to tell you this quick story and then I'll wrap it up. 5-minute story. I want to tell you about it. We heard a lot about Chuck, and Chuck was part of my legacy and all that, and still is in my heart. And one of the things he loved was simply this. The carpenter had a banquet. And he told the peasant to go out to the cities and find everybody that was poor and maimed and now saved and bring them to his house because he's having a banquet. He says, okay, peasant, go out there and get them. And the peasant went out to the city. And he talked to the cobbler who was once poor and now saved. And he says, the carpenter's having a banquet and he wants you to come. And the cobbler says, tell him I'm too busy. I've got some shoes that I got to do. Tell the carpenter I'm too busy. And he went out and talked to the blacksmith who was once poor and now saved. And he says, the carpenter's having a banquet and you're saved and he wants you to eat of the banquet. And the blacksmith says, I got a herd of horses I got to shoe. Tell him I'm too busy. And he went to the farmer who was once poor and maimed and now saved. And he says, the carpenter's having a banquet for you. Can you come? He's giving you a banquet. And he says, tell the carpenter I'm too busy. I've got some crops I've got to plant. And he came back and he talked to the carpenter. And the carpenter says, where are my people I saved? Where are they? And the peasant looked up to him and he says, they were all too busy. They were all too busy. You folks have thrown me a banquet. You throw me a banquet every Monday and Wednesday and Thursday night in my home group. You introduced this non-believer, a man scared of God, to a power greater than himself by looking at you. I can't help but see God when I look at the people of Alcoholics Anonymous because I'm too stupid to separate you. I don't have the knowledge. I found everything I needed to identify with to have a higher power sitting with you. And isn't it amazing what commitments can do, and making coffee and stuff like that? It was something that was brought to me was that the more I served you, the clearer he became. And the more I serve me, the darker I become. There's a miracle here. There's a miracle here. And I'm a stickler for evidence. You better show me some evidence. And all I can tell you folks that on a Saturday night in Nashville, there's row after row after row after row after row of people who should be locked up dead or insane. And look at us tonight. You take a good look at us tonight if you're new. You don't have to find or look for God anymore. You are playing in the evidence of a power greater than yourself. Find yourself somebody who comes to believe and does something in these home groups to perpetuate that gift. Keep that meeting alive. You are playing in the evidence, and by golly, I think I'll come back and play again tomorrow. Thank you.